We are live in Karen at the home of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, exactly a week since the National Super Alliance unveiled him as its flag bearer, and tonight he hosts us here at his home to tell us about his agenda and NASA's ambitions, of course his ambitions ahead of the 2017 general election. Thank you so much, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, for making time for us tonight.
Welcome, Hussein. Welcome to Nyalgunga.
Nyalgunga, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. The hashtag tonight is RAO Agenda. You can tweet us and follow the discussion. Again, the hashtag is RAO Agenda. Well, to my first question to you, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, first of all, congratulations for getting to be the NASA flag bearer. It's something that was really awaited. It's exactly 1 week now since that was unveiled. Of course, you're the flag bearer in a team of 5, you included. Why do you think you got to be the flag bearer, and why do you think you're the best in the Pentagon to be the flag bearer?
So first, let me begin by welcoming you here.
Thank you.
And secondly, thanking my other co-principals in NASA for showing confidence in me and choosing me as the flag bearer of NASA coalition in these coming elections. I'm not the best, but I'm just of the first among equals.
Right.
This is how we agreed that we will go into this game as equals, and one of us who is chosen will be supported by the others.
Right.
So I want to be a servant leader, and I'm the captain. As I mentioned, they've given the band. This band binds me to them and to the people of Kenya. We are committed to delivering on the aspirations of our people.
Okay. You're saying you're not the best. Some of your supporters think you are the best. Your supporters have to say you're the best, including your party. In fact, many say this was just a foregone conclusion. Everybody expected it to be Raila Odinga. Why, then, do you think they decided on you being first among equals? Why you?
I think that question is better put to them. But I'm saying they exhibited this confidence. They might as well settle on Moses Wetangula, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Musalia Mudavadi. Somebody had to carry the flag. We could even have tossed a coin and agreed that it is so and so. I don't think the stakes was too high, but the most important thing was that we were committed, because we said we cannot afford to disappoint the people of Kenya once again.
Okay.
As you know, we were together with Kalonzo Musyoka in 2013.
Right.
And we know that we won. And as you know, in our game that we love so much, soccer, you don't substitute a winning team.
Okay, because that was my next question. You've heard what critics are already saying. This is the same ticket, Raila and Kalonzo. You're saying you won, but as records will have it, you lost the 2013 election. So what makes you think you're going to win this one?
Of course, you know, I don't want to go into that history. The Supreme Court now regrets that they missed that ruling. But the thing is that it is not the same ticket, Raila or Kalonzo was Uhuru and Ruto. Because, you know, then it was not a two-horse race. This is the first time that we are having a two-horse race since the return of multi-party politics in the country.
Why would you say that?
In 2002, there was Kibaki, Uhuru, and Nyachai. In 2007, there was myself, Kibaki, and Kalonzo. In 2013, there was me, us, and Uhuru and Musalia Mudavadi. Now the third candidate is now with us in NASA. He joined us. And remember, that third candidate, which gave Jubilee 50+1 that they wanted. Plus,
actually, Musalia Mudavadi got about 500, if I'm not wrong, just less than 500,000 votes.
Yes.
So mathematically, going by the results of 2013, even if those votes were to be added onto your votes and Kalonzo's, it still wouldn't have changed much.
No, remember, it was only 7,000 votes that made the difference between us and Uhuru.
Yes.
So if you had the 500,000 on our side,
then you'd have had about 5.8 something.
So it was,
Uhuru had 6 million already.
saying there would have been a runoff because they didn't get the 50 plus 1 which is required. And they got that because Mudavadi was running on the other side. So the Mudavadi is now with us. But the most important thing that you need to consider is that now we have 19 million voters registered, out of which we are 10 million man strong. 10 million votes are for NASA.
Well, based on what?
Over
The
10.
registration?
Oh, based on
Exercise or-
registration, yes.
Because Jubilee also says it is them that, first of all, IBC is still doing the cleanup of the register. We had to see the figures. But yes, NASA has been claiming they've registered more. And you are actually on record saying the vote or the election will actually be won or lost during the voter registration exercise. Do you still stand by those words? Because Jubilee also says it is their strongholds that registered most people.
I will show you Jubilee's own document, which confirms that NASA registered more than Jubilee. And they actually know that Jubilee has got more people than they do have. We are 10 million man, woman strong. So the figures have changed. Demographics have changed substantially. This is going to be a completely different match from the 2013.
Okay, we'll wait to see. We'll wait to see. I mean, those figures when IBC finally releases them. But according to Jubilee again, who say it's them that have more numbers. I mean, this is politics. Both sides are claiming that. They also say they have made a lot of inroads in your traditionally or perceived strongholds like Western Kenya, and again areas that could be swing votes like Kisii and even Coast, which has been supporting you in recent years, and Northeastern.
I don't think that there's any justification for those claims. Those are basically words which have been flaunted. We can tell you also that we have made substantial inroads into former Jubilee strongholds like in the Meru and the Rakanithi, which are now swing. We have moved into the Rift Valley, as you have seen. Honorable Isaac Ruto has joined us. We have made major inroads into Pokot, into Marakwet and into Keyo, and into even in the Ma areas, which were originally Jubilee strongholds. So we have made bigger gains in Jubilee territories than they have made in our territories.
But that is yet to be tested, and we'll see how that goes. But one of the reasons you say that, I believe, is because you now have Isaac Ruto in your fold. One person that Jubilee says is already rejected back home, and he will not be bringing any substantial vote to the opposition.
Yeah, that is like wishful thinking, in our view. That they say the taste of the pudding is the eating. So let's wait and see. In our view, we do think now that we have now, Nakuru is now a very strong swing area. It's a battleground sufficiently. And we are going to be fielding a governor, a senator, and a woman rep candidate for Nakuru. And we do believe that we have sufficient strength to take Nakuru.
Okay, well, we'll wait to see how all that happens. Of course, after you formed Pentagon recently, you've had President Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, of course, the pair that you'll be vying against, dismissing their regiment as one that just seeks to share positions than service delivery. It's actually, they are calling it jobs for boys. How do you respond to that?
Governance is about power, Hussein. Use of power. You can either monopolize power and use it against your people, dictate on them, steal from them, and so on, or you can use that power to serve the people. We want to use the power. We want to share power. You want to diffuse power. You want to divide this power horizontally and vertically. You see, the president under the Constitution, I think it's Article 132, has the powers to create jobs in the government. That the power which the president used to create the position of chief of staff and head of public service and put Mr. Kinyua into that position. So The president can. The president has got the power to coordinate and supervise the government.
Right.
And he can delegate those powers
Right.
to, for example, premier, cabinet secretary,
Right.
in charge of coordination and so on. So this is what we want to do.
So this has nothing to do, because there's been that confusion. This has nothing to do with, it's just about names. There's nothing about changing the constitution to accommodate
No.
Mudavadi, Wetangula, and Isaac Ruto.
No, we don't need to change the constitution.
Okay.
So we can do it perfectly under the current constitution.
But what guarantee do they have that they'll have these positions? Because the only guaranteed positions, assuming you win, is you as president and Kalonzo Musyoka as the deputy president. If anything, any cabinet position should go or must have the approval of parliament. Suppose you don't even control majority of parliament. You cannot really guarantee them these positions, can you?
This is a coalition of the willing, and we have negotiated this with the advice of some of the best legal minds in this country. And we've come up with a coalition agreement which we have registered with the register of political parties. And we have sworn to protect and defend that agreement. So they are secure because our word is our bond.
But there's a possibility if parliament rejects them, they won't get the cabinet position. Assuming you win.
Of course, we will cross that bridge when we get there. We think we're going to have a majority in parliament, and therefore we'll get whatever we want to have done in parliament.
The constitution vests power, because we're in a presidential system, vests power in the presidency and authority. According to that agreement, and you've been talking about it being first among equals, power will be shared horizontally. You say there'll be a lot of consultations, but still the buck stops with the president. He's still the one responsible. Where would you be consulting these Pentagon members in making decisions, executive decisions?
You see, that same constitution gives the president power to create those positions and also to delegate some of the powers or responsibilities which have been conferred. That is the power that the president used, for example, to create positions like the Interior Ministry and Devolution Ministry. They create what they call the presidency, which brings the deputy president, the president, minister for internal security, minister for, cabinet secretary for interior, and the presidency. So using that, we can do this, and this is what we have done in this agreement.
Right, but those are positions, and creating positions and giving them names. You'll be right about that.
Yes.
What I'm talking about is power, because you're saying you'll be equal partners. How can you be equal partners in a presidential system? For example, are you going to consult the Pentagon in every decision that is to be made in government? Or give us an example, which decisions will you not consult them as the president?
In that agreement, there are responsibility of the president, which are in the constitution. So the president has donated some of those, delegated some of those responsibilities to the cabinet secretary, premier cabinet secretary, in charge of coordination of government affairs, the deputy cabinet premier in charge of economic affairs, and the other one in charge of devolution and so on. So those have been delegated in that agreement.
Right.
But the president still has the overall responsibility under the constitution.
So that remains with the president.
Yes.
For the Pentagon members who will be ministers, then the power they will have in making decisions or executive authority is as with their ministries.
Exactly.
As cabinet secretaries.
Exactly.
But still the power rests with the president.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about this memorandum of understanding. First, you said you will be the biblical Joshua that will take NASA, Kenya to Canaan. If you could elaborate that, what did you mean when you say that?
I meant exactly that, and that is in the Bible itself. That the Israelites struggled for a long time wandering in the desert when they left Egypt and so on. And when Moses was dying, he handed over then the responsibility to Joshua. and it's through Joshua that they were able to cross the River Jordan and settle in Canaan. So this is, like I said, is the role that I want to play, to cross with the Kenyans, because you remember we've traveled from 1963 all this time up to now. And there's never been Joshua to cross the river with the Kenyans. This is the role I want to play.
Okay, does that mean then, because there's been that interpretation, that you'll be a one-term president? You just take Kenyans to Canaan and that is it?
This agreement lasts for 5 years. And I've said I will just, after that, my work will have ended.
So it's one term?
Because
your deputy, your running mate has already talked about that. It will be
yes,
a one-term presidency.
Yes.
It will be one term.
Presidency, yes.
Okay. We have seen, of course, MOUs being disregarded before. You've been in politics for long in Kenya to know that. What makes this one binding? What makes this different? You see,
the MOU, this one has been made public. Remember, the other ones were never made public. And secondly, there was no commitment at that time to not to honor the agreement.
The agreement, yeah.
At that time, we were also sympathetic to Honorable Mwai Kibaki, because as you remember, he had suffered an accident which, to a certain extent, undermined his capacity for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the other people who were around the presidency took advantage of that situation, and therefore, for example, refused to deliver on what was provided for in the MOU. So I said Kibaki Tosha then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been betrayed, but that is also part of the politics. You move on all the times. We want to play politics of principle.
Okay. But this agreement, as it says very clearly, it's under NASA, the National Super Alliance. I mean, assuming you win, what stops you from joining? And we know how fluid Kenyan politics is. Rarely do we see one coalition going through to another election or two other elections. So assuming you win, because this agreement is under the National Super Alliance, what stops you from joining another party, and therefore this will not be binding to you or any other coalition?
You know, we don't want to anticipate the disagreements under this agreement. Everything we have done in good faith, and trust is the most important thing. Any agreement can be breached, as you know, depending on the circumstances. Any member of the party can walk out this agreement. It says that if 3 members walk out, then there is no coalition.
So what if that happens?
But if only 2 members walk out,
yeah,
then the coalition still
remains intact.
Okay.
There was an MOU between you and Kalonzo Musyoka before. I did an interview with you towards the end of last year. You said very well then, because Kalonzo Musyoka supporters were saying it's time you left it for Kalonzo Musyoka to be the flag bearer. You said very well then, that MOU does not hold because it never came to pass that you will be the president, but you became president in 2013. So what if a similar scenario happens in this election, 2017?
Yeah, then the same situation would obtain.
So the deal will not hold.
I mean, I am supposed to be a Joshua. I will not have been a Joshua because we will not have crossed the Jordan.
I see.
Okay.
So whether it's now or 5 years from now, you'll still have to be that Joshua.
No, I've just said that it will not hold. I don't say that I'm going to run again, but I just said that agreement will have been frustrated by circumstances.
If you don't win.
That is the situation that obtained, that I was supposed to hand over to Kalonzo Musyoka after 5 years of running a government.
Yes.
We did not run the government for 5 years. So I had nothing to hand over.
Yes.
Okay? But this time we are going to form a government. So we'll have something to hand over.
And if it doesn't happen, the same will obtain.
Why don't you move to another subject, Hussein?
No, it's just
boring, please.
I'll move to another subject, but I mean, just for clarity.
I've already explained it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then finally on this matter, is this then, or will this be, because people have talked about this, including George Haladwa, saying this is your last bullet. You've talked about it before. You've had many people talking about that. Will this be your last stab at the presidency?
Hussein, I have said that I will be last. This is I will be Joshua that will cross with the Kenyans to Canaan. Okay, so why don't you move to another subject? It's becoming dull.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. Let's quickly now talk about the party primaries that were marred by claims of rigging and voter malpractice across the board. This is actually not ODM only. We saw this happening in all other political parties. There are a lot of problems. But you're the party leader in ODM, specifically in your party. First, do you think the process was free and fair in your party?
I think we did pretty well compared to last time as a party. You know, nominations under the Kenyan circumstances are a very challenging exercise. Because first, they demand a lot of resources, like you're doing a general election, resources which the parties don't have. You know, the constitution and the law actually require the government to give political parties 0.03% of the national revenue for running it. This government has refused to give political parties that fund. As we are talking right now, the government owes ODM 4.5 billion shillings. This they're doing deliberately because they don't want political parties to function effectively. Now, given the limited resources that the parties have, of course, I think they did well. And in any kind of contest, there will be winners and losers. There will be those also who feel that they have lost unfairly. And avenues are available for dispute resolution. But I would also want to point out that the law that the Jubilee government imposed on us, abusing what they call this tyranny of numbers, because they feared that there would be defections from Jubilee following the nominations or acrimony, has actually imposed a lot of limitations and restrictions. It has given the IEBC and the registered political parties a lot of powers to micromanage affairs of political parties. You
would have wanted, am I to assume you would have wanted people to be able to party hop, that window to be given?
No, you see, the thing is, political parties are voluntary organizations. They should be allowed to do their affairs as they like. You see, you find under the Societies Act, you have clubs like Current Club, Nairobi Club, Taiga, and so on. They don't have to go to the Registrar of Society to ask for permission to do their elections. They have their own rules and regulations. So, but now here, for example, we wanted to do nominations early, as early as January, so that we could be able to resolve disputes. For example, repeat where the exercise was not done properly. But the IBC stopped us from doing it. They insisted that they must gazette all candidates before any party could do any nominations. And they set also the period under which the parties could do their nominations. And also the period within which the dispute should be adjudicated. So the time was very short. So where there were, for example, complaints, there was no time to do a repeat.
So what happened? What happens there? Because some have been very angry with the party. I'll look at a few examples. For example, in Kisumu, for instance, 300,000 votes being counted in the governor's race. Women's rep counted 4 hours after polls closed, yet voting was going on in some areas. Again, what we saw in Busia, Otwoma, and Ojamong, ultimately Otwoma felt the party was not listening to his grievances, and he decided to vie as an independent. First, I don't know what you thought about that, because several times we heard Otwoma talk about the problems in the party and hoping you will intervene?
You see, in Busia, when we saw the complaints, the elections board first suspended those results. And after the investigations, decided that they were only complaining about 2 constituencies out of 7. These were in Teso. And the election board decided to order a repeat of the
2 areas.
Elections in Teso. Honorable Tuma refused. At first he demanded that they should repeat the entire county. When the board then said, yes, we repeat the entire county, then he said it was too expensive for him. He didn't want that at all. Now, the other claims he made was that people overvoted in Teso, that those who voted were more than those who were registered.
Yes.
In Teso South, where he was complaining, 44,000 people voted. There's a total of 67,000 people who are registered. In Teso North, there are 55,000 registered voters and just 30 voted. So we said, repeat. And he refused. He decided.
Well, from the figures he was talking about on IEBC, the last figures in 2016, the registered voters then, I think 2013 as well, were about 41,000.
Yeah,
it didn't go to 45,000.
No, it took 44,000.
Exactly, 44 voted. So how, that would mean everybody voted in that constituency.
And that's why we nullified. The people who are registered are 67,000. Now, and he said there are more, but in his own constituency of Samia, the turnout was 77%. In Teso, where I was talking about, the turnout was 72%.
So both didn't make sense?
So both didn't make sense. So I'm just saying there's an injustice in both ways.
Okay.
I mean, so it was not just in Teso where people were voted. Also in his own Funyula constituency, people overvoted.
Okay, what about Kisumu? What happens in Kisumu?
In Kisumu, there was, of course, there was, first you remember that there was a county elections board which was overseeing the elections. Then some people went to court and appealed that that election board was biased in favor of one group. On Friday, that on the eve of elections, the court made a ruling and dissolved that board. Elections were due on Monday. The board was getting to know about this dissolution on Saturday, that that election board had been dissolved. So the board had to now quickly put in place a new team. This new team did not have sufficient time to go around and then talk to the returning officers who have been appointed for different constituencies. This is, you can also say, is partly responsible for what happened in Kisumu nominations to county. The mess was occasioned by a court ruling which nullified the appointment of the board which was overseeing the elections.
That notwithstanding.
This new board moved in and tried to made proper arrangements were made for elections.
Right.
It was at the tallying and the results announcement where there was a problem.
And there was a problem as well in other counties, especially in Luo Nyanza, where we had 2 people being announced victors at the same time. Some people close to you are lost, including your brother Oburu Oginga. First, he was again announced the winner, and then he conceded. Jacoyo Midiwo, who actually stopped short of accusing your family of meddling in the process, and especially accusing Oburu Oginga. The same allegations were made in the Siaya governor's race, where we had some returning officers alleging that calls were coming from people close to you and your family on the preferred candidate.
Hussein, I don't get myself involved in nomination affairs. There's an election board which is in charge. If I was involved in rigging, would I have not rigged my brother Oburu? I had nothing to do with it. if Uburu lost and it was announced Uburu lost, remember it was announced a loser, then announced a winner again. But the board said no, he lost. This is what they said. So why would I rig Uburu out? Why would I rig Jacoyo Mediu out? Jacoyo Mediu himself is also a relative of mine.
Yeah, who is now accusing ODM of
your information.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just saying that that's a very far-fetched. That has really no basis at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you worried then? Because clearly there was a problem in the nominations there, and you've cited the time constraints. Are you worried the bitter fallouts will affect the turnout, and especially in your strongholds? And let me give an example here. If, for instance, in Migori County, where Okoth Obado now has the ticket for governor, ODM, Ochilo Ayako tried but didn't get it. Ochilo Ayako has decided to vie as an independent. What will ODM or NASA do in the election time? Because there will be these independents. First, do you think it's going to affect turnout? And number two, will you support the only ODM certificate holders, nominees, or will you also support independents who are in the party?
You see, in the last elections, people had options to go and run for positions on other CORD-affiliated parties. Like Obado himself ran on PDP.
Yeah.
Mr. Kopio ran on Ford Kenya and so on. There were a number of people who ran on other parties which affiliated to ODM and won. Because we were campaigning for CORD, and we never somehow demonized those other people who had gone to other parties. So we have no problem at all. I mean, some of them are our people. We appreciate that there are problems in the nominations, and they have gone to run as independents.
So you'll support them as well? When you're doing your campaigns, will you support them as well? Or is it ODM ticket holders only?
Of course, I will be supporting ODM candidates, but I also have nothing against them. I have nothing against them at all.
Okay. Back to the 2017 election. NASA recently, I think that was 2 days ago, threatened to boycott the election if IEBC does not withdraw an appeal to High Court ruling that said returning officers' decision or announcement of the presidential elections at the constituency level will be final. Yet NASA has been a major litigant in the elections process so far. First, is it accepting judicial decisions selectively? Because why would you put undue pressure on the courts? Why wouldn't you wait for the appeal to be hard and determined?
First, we have never said that we are going to boycott.
It was said, it was in a statement that was sent to newsrooms. Unless you're saying now it won't happen.
They said there won't be an election. That's all that they said. Because elections which are held against the Constitution are null and void. Okay? So the Constitution is very clear that the presidential elections are held in the constituencies. And that the results which are announced by the returning officer in the constituencies are the results. And this is what the court actually did say, that the results that are announced by the returning officer in the constituency are final. But not only that, you need to know that the Supreme Court itself has already pronounced itself on this matter. In the Joho versus Shabal case, the Supreme Court said that the results announced by the returning officer are final, and not even the returning officer can change it. See? So what these other courts did was basically to affirm that ruling by the Supreme Court. So if now the IBC went ahead
to appeal
and then came up, with something that's different from that, it will be actually violating the Constitution.
But they've gone to
and
court.
And you know that the law, which is unconstitutional, is relevant in as far as that law is to the extent of the inconsistency.
Right, but IBC is also saying that ruling was a bit unconstitutional because there's lack of clarity as IBC is supposed to verify these results. The IBC is already in court The appeal is already in court. Are you saying it doesn't matter what the appeals court will decide?
It doesn't matter because the Supreme Court, which is a higher court than the appeals court, has already made a ruling on this matter.
But the substantive matter is at the appeals court right now.
I'm saying, but the other, the IBC need to have read, their lawyers should have advised them that they are engaging in an exercise in futility. Because already there's a constitution and there's a ruling by the Supreme Court on that matter.
So if, because it is a matter that NASA has been very firm about, whether you'll have results, that results should be announced at the constituency level. So if the court does not uphold the High Court ruling, what will you do as NASA? There'll be no election, that's what you're saying?
Of course, that ruling will be irrelevant because there's a Supreme Court ruling, and when we don't expect the court to rule otherwise.
Okay, we'll see, because that case is at the appeals court right now. You played an instrumental part, personally and as NASA, in the reorganization of IBC. Do you have 100% confidence in IBC that they will conduct a free and fair election process as it is right now?
They say the taste of the pudding is in the eating. But you see, we have ourselves expressed concerns about the level of preparedness of the IBC, because they keep on making pronouncements that they are ready, and they're ready, and so on. But the IBC ought to keep players, actors, constantly engaged and informed. There's need for transparency in everything that they are doing, so that you don't have to be shopping for that information. You see, if you talk in terms of the ICT infrastructure acquisition, they are now saying that they already acquired the software and the hardware.
Yeah.
When the software and hardware came, there's a technical committee which was set up. They should have been engaged in receiving them, and then when they're doing the testing, these representatives should be available to witness the testing, so that you know that those equipment are actually going to work. The other one is this issue of acquisition of ballot papers. You know, we went to court, and there's been a court ruling on this matter, and again right now they have trying to go to tender without disclosing clearly the specifications that they're using in these other matters.
Okay.
Then there's the issue of appointment of officers. You see, in civil society these days, the returning officers are not just handpicked by IBC and prospered to other places. This is something that should be done in terms of balloting. So random, so that people are not just handpicked to go to this region, to go to this region. In another, you can actually handpick returning officers who are biased and take them to a particular region for the purposes of doing the facilitating rigging.
So with those concerns that you've raised, am I to assume that you're not 100% confident that they'll hold a free and fair election?
Yeah, I'm just saying that they are too economical with the facts and information, that they need to be more transparent. And then they still have officers whose conduct in the last elections still leave a lot to be desired. And they are the same officers who are still manning the same positions that they did in the last elections.
Meaning, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, you're going into this election still with concerns about the referee?
We have actually raised these issues with the IBC itself.
Yes.
In our meetings. And they told us they are going to be more transparent, they're going to get involved. Like right now, the auditing of the register is going on.
Yes.
They had told us that they are going to involve stakeholders in this auditing. Now, this is, I think, the third week that
the exercise is going on.
The exercise is going on, and we have not been involved.
Okay. So I'm to assuming you're not 100% confident still with IBC then? Okay. You have said before that you will ensure, and you have ensured, that you've put all mechanisms to ensure there will be no rigging in the 2017 election. You actually went ahead to tell your supporters, I will never come back to you and say my votes have been stolen. Is that to mean then, whatever result you will get, or result that will be in the 2017 election, you will not protest it? Because you have put those mechanisms you're talking about.
Yes, Hussein, if elections are held transparently, there will be no complaints, and we've said so. And that's why you see us take measures right now to ensure that the next elections are fair and fair. One, we are trying to ensure that they will have agents at all polling stations in the country, and that we hope that they are going to be allowed to participate in those elections without being interfered with by security forces. We right now have information that the government intends to use its security forces to particularly interfere with the electoral process in our own strongholds. And this is a case where we are actually giving a warning to the government that that will not be tolerated. The overuse of security forces.
This information you're getting from?
We have written information. We are going to make it public shortly. That shows. We see Mr. Kaiseri has come out to say that there are some hotspots, counties.
Yes.
And the
where he fears violence.
A majority of them are actually in our strongholds. That basically is supposed to be a pretext for over deployment of security forces on the polling day. You remember in the coast last time, they misused the security forces in some polling stations in Kwale, in Kilifi, and so on, under the pretext of MRI. They sent police officers to throw tear gas at polling stations and disperse the people. Why? Because they knew that most of those people were going to vote for CORD areas. So that is the other one. The other one, we are talking about parallel tallying. And you've seen them very jittery about it.
You agreed that you'll not announce. You'll do parallel tallying, but no announcement.
No announcement, but we'll do parallel tallying because the law now says that the results announced at the polling station and final. And secondly, the ones announced after tallying at the constituency are also final. So, and we will be tallying them as the IBC is also tallying parallelly, so that we will be able to come out with the clear results.
So if they don't match?
If they don't match, then one must be wrong, definitely. But we are going to put up a proof system.
That could be either, isn't it? Including yours could be the problem.
No.
Why not yours? After all, these are your agents getting figures for an election that NASA is involved. Well, I mean, there's no way they would not want NASA to win, isn't it?
No. What happens is that once the results have been counted at a polling station, then that from the C34 or whatever it is completed, and then it is countersigned by the agent of political parties. That same form is scanned by agent of parties and then transmitted to the tallying center. So it's its original form. And they cannot be otherwise. But you see, what happened last time, the forms coming to Bomas of Kenya were very different from the ones which were signed at the polling station
level.
See, and all this was in the evidence which we took to the Supreme Court, which was never considered.
Okay. So finally on this matter, are you saying then, are you still sticking by your words that you will not go back to your supporters to tell them you've been rigged?
No.
You're not sticking by those words?
We're not sticking by that.
You don't stick by that? You retract that?
Yes.
Okay. Finally, Deputy President William Ruto just recently challenged you to accept the results of the election. I don't know how you respond to that.
No, we say we will basically we are going to stop the rigging. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm confident about. So we will accept the results.
You will accept the results?
Yes.
You will stop the rigging?
Yes.
But you're saying you're retracting the statement that you will not go back to the people to tell them you've been rigged?
I'm not retracting.
That remains?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the pillars NASA is talking about and the changes you want to make in this country now, your agenda. One of them being one of the biggest problems, and you've been there, and many people and your supporters say you're a crusader against corruption, which has been a big problem in this country. You have faulted Jubilee in the war against graft, and especially how they're implementing the war against graft. What is it you will do different?
You see, the evidence is always there. The thing is that, I mean, we have got, for example, evidence about Eurobond is available. The evidence about NYS, the evidence about the Ministry of Health, the evidence about the Ministry of, how do you call it, the SGR and so on. So the evidence is always available, but there is no prosecution. So what we are going to do ourselves, we are going to ensure that where there is sufficient evidence, that there is conviction. That is what we are going to do different from Jubilee.
How? Through institutions or how? What is really going to happen?
Make the institutions work. And the institution can work if you have got the right people in the right places who are committed to doing it, okay? And then you have got the political backup and leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
All these issues you mentioned, the scandals, the EACC is still investigating them to ascertain the level of evidence and whether people will be taken to court or not. Some have, but there have been very few convictions. As has been, even in your time as Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, there were corruption scandals then. Case in point, the May scandal, free primary education. I was there one day when you publicly told the education minister then, Professor Sam Ongeri, to step aside. He also told the agriculture minister, then William Ruto, to step aside. Hasn't Jubilee done the same thing? Is it the same thing you did? With few convictions again. Ongeri is even in your team right now in ODM.
You know, stepping aside does not itself mean that the person is guilty. Stepping aside basically means that the person is under investigations. Remember, my own permanent secretary stepped aside. My own chief of staff also stepped aside. And they were all investigated. And after the investigations, they were found not to be culpable, and they were then returned to work. But you see, the thing is here is that with regard to Jubilee, there has been no conviction. You need to know at that time, we were running a coalition government.
Still with no convictions.
I'm saying, but I'm just saying that at that time, remember when I did ask these people to step aside, the president overruled me, and okay, so I cannot be blamed for actions which were taken elsewhere.
But still, you are still in the same government.
No,
and hasn't the Jubilee regime done the same? Has it told people to step aside?
But who has been convicted?
Who was convicted in your time?
Because I'm just saying, you're saying that they asked them to step aside.
Yeah.
They even have spoiled even careers of some people who were asked to step aside without any sufficient evidence. The IBC took the list, and then the list itself was doctored. Some names were edited out of it until to come out and tell them so and so his name was one which was here.
Right.
So he must begin by first starting with EACC. It is EACC as currently constituted a competent institution to carry out these investigations.
Okay.
Like saying that people who are running for office must get a certificate from EACC. It's a joke.
Why?
It's a mockery because EACC is not competent. EACC itself is corrupt.
So would you overhaul EACC
Of course.
when you assume power? And how? If you assume power, how would you do that?
No, you just need to ensure that people who are there are people who are themselves clean, so that they will be vetted. So if they are clean, fine. If they are not clean,
okay.
Because you see what they have been doing is playing political game. See, they are coming to me, my office, about the Eurobond. Huh? And they know where the evidence is. Now they're going for the Auditor General, okay? Because the Auditor General has got information on the Eurobond, and the Auditor General has said that he cannot trace this money, where this money went to, because he cannot see whether this money entered the Treasury or the Central Bank or not.
Okay.
And if it were entered, where it was used.
I'm asking this question because you were serving before. Kalonzo was serving in that government. Musalia Mudavadi was serving in that government. Musalia Tangula was serving in that government. You're talking about lack of convictions. We didn't have convictions then. People were being asked to step aside, and you're faulting Jubilee for that. People were asked to step aside then. Again, during this term, since 2013 when Jubilee took power, no single law has been passed by the opposition in Parliament in getting a creative way or another way, an alternative way to fight graft. No single law has even been initiated by the opposition. Doesn't that speak something about your commitment?
No. Our people have tried, but the Parliament, there is what you call the tyranny of numbers.
They say you better try and fail and people see.
The other people, they have been fond of talking about these people in government. When we were in government, William Ruto was minister for agriculture and the minister for higher education. He forgets that. Uhuru Kenyatta was minister for trade and then minister for finance for all that period of time. So it talks as if he was not part of the Grand Coalition government, but he was very much
they were all in that government.
Exactly.
Right. So, should we have seen the opposition trying in Parliament, even without numbers, and even fail?
Yes.
We never saw any law being initiated.
Yes. But there's no lack of laws in this country to fight graft.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not a question we don't have laws, we don't have powers. The other day the president was saying that he wished he was working under the old constitution.
Okay.
Under that old constitution, when graft was very high. It is not lack of institutions, it's not lack of laws, it's lack of commitment from the leadership. That's the reason why we have this graft.
Somehow in Kenya's political leadership, both government and this, you've actually just said it, Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto were also serving in the coalition government. So both government and opposition are from the same pot in recent years. At one time friends, at another time foes. You, for instance, way back during the Golden Bag scandal, accused Mudavadi as being the architect of the scandal, together with former President Moi. Isaac Ruto once accused you of being dictatorial when he was leaving ODM. He actually said you even never won the 2007 election. That's how bitter he was. Kalonzo also talked about you being dictatorial, and so did Mudavadi. You also accused Isaac Ruto over the Mau Forest issue as being the key people who stole land in the Mau Forest in Chapalungu. Does it seem to be the same cycle over and over again in terms of corruption and accountability? What will be different?
You see, they say that politics make of strange bedfellows. When Salim Davadi, the time he made that statement, because this has been circulated by the Jubilee people, Raila talking about Salim Davadi. By that time, there had been no investigations. Since that time, investigations were carried out, and Mudavadi was exonerated by those investigations. So,
but you said with so much conviction that you know he was the one behind all this.
Because there had been no investigation carried out. The investigations have exonerated him. Okay? So now, if, for example, Nelson Mandela were to hold grudge, he would never have worked with de Klerk to form a government. Okay? But Nelson Mandela said that the time had come to negotiate with the Boers in order to unite South Africa and come up with a rainbow nation and create a new society in South Africa. So politics requires compromise. I was detained by President Moi for a total of 9 years without trial.
So you don't think it makes it?
And I worked with Moi. Okay, so if I could work with Moi, why could I not?
So with all those examples I've given, there are some who think it just makes a joke of Kenyan politics, and no leader is actually really interested in accountability and fighting graft.
It's not just in Kenya, in all of the world, there's sometimes need for compromises so that the society can move on. I think the great Italian politician, Palmiro Togliatti, he was the leader of the Italian Communist Party. At one time, the Italian politics was so polarized, and eventually the left and with the extreme right and formed a coalition, and they called it compromiso histórico, a historical compromise. That's how we bring these things together.
Okay.
So sometimes there is need for a country to unite for the common good of the people. And this is what is bringing the Kenyan people together right now, because Kenya is in a crisis.
Okay, some still have reservations about that and whether it makes a joke of Kenyan politics or not, but let's move on. What do you think ails the Kenyan economy right now, the high cost of living that everybody is complaining about? And what will you do about it? What will the NASA government do differently? If you win, for example, the first 100 days in office, or whatever time you'd want to give immediate measures, what would you do about the economy? Which three critical areas would you say you'll do something about, or you pump money in, and how would you reform it?
First, we talk of the first 90 days.
90 days.
Not 100 days.
Okay.
Okay.
That's 3 months.
Yes, that's 3 months.
Okay.
What we will do is that we will bring the cost of food down.
How?
And also the cost of other essential commodities in the country. Secondly,
how will you do that? How will you do that? Because right now the cost of food is high, inflation is almost 12%.
Yes.
And we've seen the Jubilee government talk about drought. Of course, we've all seen there's been a problem of drought, but you also faulted the Jubilee government because of their policies, and that is why we are here. So how would you do it differently?
You see, the type of food, for example, is maize and wheat and so on. You must do some subsidy as a government in the short run, and then address the issues of production, so that it will lower the cost of production of essential foods in the mid-term and long-term. Address the issues of inputs to the farmers, okay? So which will help you to lower the costs of fertilizers, seeds.
And they've been doing all this. They've been subsidizing all this.
Yes.
Still, it hasn't worked.
Because there's been too much corruption in the whole process that it does not reach the farmer. It's only the middlemen who are actually benefiting, and that is the main problem. The food subsidy, or subsidy to the farmers, is done all over the world. Europeans do it. The Americans also do it. Okay? So we will be able to lower the price of food to the people of this country, because the majority of the people of this country are suffering seriously. And the other issues like rents, people who are particularly living in urban areas,
Rents
are also pretty high.
So how will you bring that down?
We brought it down in Kibra. We can bring it down again.
How? This is again, you're still talking about the first 90 days, isn't it?
Yes, there's
How
what
is
we
that
call economic rent, which is very easy to do. Just negotiating with landlords and putting a ceiling at what can be charged for the
for rent.
Yes.
So there have to be some controls in terms of the ceiling for how much rent should be charged. Is that to say, in the first 90 days of your government, rent will come down in the urban areas in Kenya?
Yes.
In the first 90 days, rent will come down?
Yes.
Okay. The other issue, you've been talking about the debt burden in Kenya. Condemn the government of borrowing. How will you fix the problem if you're still in power? The issue of debt.
You see, you need first to deal with issues of income generally. And this is what we did when we came into government in 2003. Okay, first introduce efficiency in terms of revenue collection. Remember, when we went in, the government was collecting 300 billion shillings in 2002. It went, in the first year of government, it was doubled to 600 billion shillings. Then it went to 900 and then over trillion. See, so we were, all of a sudden we now have more revenue internally to do most of the development we wanted to do without having to borrow. We reached a stage where we were financing our budget 90% from internal revenue.
Which year is this?
This was 2007. Yes. So that, and that time, the rate of growth also went up.
Okay.
From almost zero rate of growth to 7%.
Okay. You've talked about revenues, and we've seen KRA try to meet its targets, but it doesn't meet its targets. For example, the budget now, 600 billion is going to infrastructure. 1.2 trillion is going to expenditure, and this is recurrent. We have about 1.4 million employees in the private sector right now. 700,000 are in the formal sector. 700,000 workers mostly taking up this money in government. First, with that deficit, and KRA is not meeting its targets, how will you finance projects? Because I'm sure if you assume power, you'd want to initiate projects, isn't it? How would you finance it? Where would you get the money from?
I told you, as part of the equation, said income, and to address the issue of expenditure. Because that's where there's also a big wastage. Remember, when we came into power in 2003, we suspended all procurement officers in the government and vetted them. We did due diligence, and only those who are not corrupt were retained. See, because a lot of this money you're talking about, billions, does not go to the project for which it is intended.
Is that something you're going to do again in the first 90 days?
That is what Magufuli did in Tanzania.
Is that what you're going to do?
Yes.
So again, you'll vet all the officers in government?
Yes. That's where there's a big wastage. They come up with huge locations. They tell you to Metenga, but the people don't see that money. It's not reaching the ground. It's all being spent in the air. So there's better ways of doing things. There's money around here. If it's properly managed, you get sufficient revenue. You don't have to overtax the population.
You want tax, you won't raise the tax.
Don't raise the tax. Just collect it more efficiently.
But can that really work?
Ensure that everybody pays the tax.
But can that really work? Because we've seen you serve in government, in the coalition government. From 2008 to 2013, the debt rose from 850 billion to 1.8 trillion. This is according to the central bank data. For the Jubilee government from 2013 to 2016, the rose rose from 1.8 trillion to 3.8 trillion. So still, you are also borrowing. Are you saying you're not going to borrow, or how much are you going to borrow? No,
you see, you just look at the ratio, debt at the GDP ratio. Well, by the time we were coming out, it was 39%. It is now over 50%. See, so what you have here is an increase that has never been experienced in this country from independence up to now. See, they're saying they're borrowing for infrastructure development. Nobody would begrudge them that. But at what cost? How high are the costs of doing this infrastructure? Heavily inflated. See? So instead of just spending so much for doing SGR, you could have done several other SGRs. Okay? So when they're telling you the amount of money they've allocated for roads, they're doing the roads now at how much? About 200 million shillings per kilometer. When I went to the Ministry of Roads in 2003, I found the cost of constructing a tarmac road at 50 million shillings per kilometer. I reduced it to 25 million shillings, more than 50%. Still, and then we came up with a wider gauge road and better quality.
Okay. So at what level are you going to borrow? Are you saying you're not going to borrow?
No, we are going to borrow
You obviously need to fund.
responsibly, but what we can service. You see, at the moment, a very huge percentage of our revenue is just going to debt servicing. Very little left for development. So then what are they doing? They're now borrowing to pay the debt.
Okay.
See, so something which is not sustainable. And even the World Bank and IMF have said as much.
In terms of the wage bill, are you planning to reduce salaries for civil servants?
No, I mean, you don't have to reduce salary for civil servants. You just want to ensure that this economy is expanding, so that that ratio of salary to the money, or what we call development versus recurrent, is not so skewed the way it is at the moment. Because right now, a huge percentage of the revenue is just going for consumption. But because you're not, the economy is not expanding as fast. Okay, so if you ensure that you retain these salaries as it is, don't have salary increases for a certain period of time. In the end, the economy is going to grow, and this percentage is going to become smaller and smaller.
Okay. Finally, on the issue, another key pillar in NASA, in your manifesto, is about national cohesion. You've been faulting the Jubilee government for negative ethnicity, and especially in how they have been doing the appointments, even in the civil service. An audit by the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, this is in 2011. You were in the coalition government. I think the second last year of your term then, which was the first ethnic audit of Kenya's civil service, found that 373 out of 393 jobs at the office of the president were from one community, his community. And I actually have to give a disclaimer and say sorry to Kenyans for saying that, but this is what was in that report. The president then was Mwai Kibaki. It may have happened during his time or not, or before. You, Prime Minister Raila Odinga, it was also said then, majority of the staff in your office belong to your community. Yet this was a new office, the Prime Minister's office.
That is a blatant lie. The figures, the facts are there as they are. How many laws were there? There were very few laws in the office of the Prime Minister.
But this is what the NCIC...
That is propaganda. I can assure you that, because I can give you the actual figures as they are. In my office, there were so many different communities serving there. The PS was a Somali, the finance officer was a Lohia, the deputy was from the coast, the gender was from the coast. I mean, they were all appointed from different communities. In fact, the office of the Prime Minister, because it was the new office, I ensured that it had the face of Kenya. But then at that time, we were not appointing civil servants. You see, most civil servants were being appointed by the Public Service Commission. It is under the Jubilee that this new constitution actually came into effect, where they now appoint cabinet secretaries and also appoint principal secretaries. And because they were supposed to be digital and nationalists and so on, they should have done it differently.
Okay. As I say,
they gave themselves, this ministry belonged to the president, this one belonged to the deputy president. So the president appoints a minister from his community, the deputy president PS from his community, and so on and so forth.
So okay, these figures were according to the NCIC. You're saying there's nothing like that, okay? But you're now saying president was giving, they were deciding where to place the ministers according to the ethnic. I mean, one minister from his tribe, PS from the other tribe, and vice versa. Some are worried the same thing is already happening with NASA, because you have already decided out of the 5 members of the Pentagon, there are some ministries that have already been shared out, and some communities are worried.
You know, I think this is completely being misunderstood. It has been said that this minister, this is going to be in charge of coordinating these ministries. but it's not going to appoint the ministers solo. What has been agreed is that the areas where ministries have been shared, the particular individual will bring 3 names, and those 3 names will be vetted. And
from
then,
their areas, you see?
Not from the areas.
Regardless, okay.
No, that cabinet must have the face of Kenya. It is going to be very representative. It's not that I, for example, don't represent the Luo, neither does the Kalonzo represent the Kamba. As you know that my political base is in Nairobi, where you're sitting is my constituency. Okay? So every community will get their fair share, okay, in that government. But we're also going to look at meritocracy at the same time. If you say you're talking about merit, even an El Molo has a merit. And this is what they came up with in Malaysia, a multi-ethnic society. That you come up with a quota and say this quota is for the Maasai.
But you still have your stronghold, isn't it?
Yes.
There's still a place where you know you're going to get your votes from, even as Pentagon. You have your stronghold as Pentagon, isn't it?
But the thing is that it doesn't matter whether somebody has voted for you or has not voted for you, the people. They are Kenyans, they pay taxes. For example, it was very responsible of the president to go to Likoni, to Waitiki, and tell them that you guys did not vote for us in the last elections. Therefore, I'm not going to write off the loan. You have to pay because you did not vote for us. Those people pay taxes because at the same time he's refusing to do it to the people of Waitiki. He's writing off the loan to the coffee farmers in his backyard or tea farmers and so on. He does not do it for the sugarcane farmers down there. He does not do it for the pastoralists and so on and so forth. So we are saying that these are all Kenyans. They all pay taxes whether they voted for you, they did not vote for you. So in our government, in areas which will not vote for us, will not suffer because they did not vote for us. They are Kenyans, and I just want to say we are not going to slow development in any particular region of this country because they are pro-Jubilee, they are anti-NASA.
Will you change the constitution finally? We've already had, I mean, there was the Okoa Kenya referendum drive, and we've had already your running mate, Kalonzo Musyoka, saying within 180 days, if you assume power, you will change the constitution. Will that happen?
Well, we've said this, as we all are, we are all believers in the original Burma's constitution, okay, which was changed by the Cliffy draft, and that's the reason why we opposed it.
Although you were in that process,
we opposed it in the referendum. The Naivasha draft was basically a mongrel that was crafted in order to reach some agreements with the anti-reform forces. So it is not really the ideal constitution that the Kenyans wanted.
So you will change then after 180 days you'll begin?
No, it is not us, it is the Kenyans who can change or can refuse it.
Are you going to push this drive? That's the question.
We will ask the Kenyans, just like, remember Mr. Cameron asked Britons whether they wanted to exit or not, and they said yes. So we're not going to impose anything on Kenyan people.
Okay, in the Okoa Kenya drive, the signatures you got was about 1.6 billion. That is what CORD said. Then it was CORD.
Yes.
IBC said it's about 800 and something thousand, if I'm not wrong, just slightly under 900,000. So you're now going into, because I mean, you're going into and you've said it very, very clearly right now, that your government will be for all the people, regardless of who voted for you or who did not vote for you. Okoa Kenya was about supporters of CORD. About 1 million or 1.6, if you say, but IBC disputes those figures. Are you saying you're still going to push on this drive based on your supporters numbering about 1 million and what they wanted, yet you'll be the president of 40 million Kenyans? What if they don't want the constitution changed?
That's fine. I mean, that's the democratic right. You know, if you go to Europe, in France, in Italy, in Germany, they are doing referendum almost every year or every other year. So it's not a big issue.
So you're going to start the process all over again, and you're going to find out whether once Kenyans want to change it or not.
Yes.
This is in 180 days.
We have not said exactly 180 days. We said
that's what you're running with, yeah.
We'll revisit it.
You'll revisit it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, finally.
Before finally,
yeah.
You asked me 90 days.
Yes, yes. If you have any other.
The issue of devolution.
Mm-hmm.
In that period, we will also devolve more funds to the devolved units of the country.
What percentage will you?
We talked of between 40 to 45%.
45%.
Yes.
This is within the first 90 days.
Yes.
Okay. Finally, Right Honorable Odinga, how would want to know, Kenyans would want to know, we saw the video recently, how is your daughter Rosemary Odinga faring?
First, I want to thank Kenyans for the show of sympathy and love that they've shown since Rosemary fell abruptly ill here in Nairobi. And I can report that Rosemary is done very well. She was taken to hospital in Johannesburg. She spent 2 weeks in the hospital and then she was discharged. She went to a rehab home where she spent another 2 months. She's been discharged from that. She's now in an apartment. And she's doing well. She saw in that video which she recorded. She's doing very, very well. And she's very grateful to Kenyans for the messages of sympathy she has continued to receive.
Right.
Yes.
Because we at Real Media Services generally sympathize with her, sympathize with you, the family, and wish her all the best and quick recovery.
Thank you, thank you.
Your final comments now.
I first want to thank Kenyans for this exercise which has been concluded to the nomination of the political parties. Secondly, I also want to assure Kenyans that we as NASA are ready to take Kenya to a next level. And I want to appeal for their support in these coming elections. We also want to urge our competitors, the Jubilee, to play fair. We assure them that we ourselves are going to play very fair, and we are urging our supporters to be peaceful during this period of electioneering. We want to show that Kenya can mature like other African countries have done, Nigeria, Ghana, lately even the Gambia. So we would like the Jubilee not to play like the other African countries, which I can say do not want to transition to proper democratic governance, where the government can be changed through the ballot rather than the bullet. So we as NASA are committed to a peaceful process, and we, if we lose fairly, we will concede defeat and we will congratulate the winner, in this case Jubilee. Right. But we also want them to be prepared to congratulate us as we are going to defeat them. To congratulate us and let Kenya move on.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That is the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, NASA's flag bearer. We thank you again for making time for us and for hosting us in your Nyalgunga, as you put it. Thank you so much for making time for us tonight. That's all we have for you. Of course, there's a lot more questions to be asked, and we're hoping, of course, there's a busy campaign period. NASA will begin, and him as the flag bearer will begin right now. But obviously, we could not tackle every issue. But thank you so much once again, and thank you for watching. I'm Hussein Mohammed. Have a good night.